No,
said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go.
I'm doing what the bucket tells me to do. Is this a
I'm going
bucket?
to run you through some test scenarios, and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Item 4. Is this a bucket?
Yes, that's a bucket.
Are you hallucinating? This is a tractor. It's an enormous machine that tills the earth.
Oh my gosh.
No
There's
bucket.
so many
Come
buckets.
to me, Stanley.
There's so many buckets.
And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. Stanley doubled over in agony. And
I blacked out.
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley picked up the bucket.
I picked up the bucket. I didn't even know you could pick up the bucket.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
No, I didn't. No, I
Not
didn't.
the correct way to the meeting room. But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
That's right.
And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be.
The bucket is now telling me what to do.
No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift. Good,
Said the bucket.
now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
I'm doing what the bucket tells me to do.
In here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Now pick up the phone.
Said the bucket.
Pick up the phone and it will take us back home where we can go about life together.
This bucket.
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket.
My bucket. Yes, where's my bucket? Where's my bucket? Where's my bucket, though? I had a bucket. Oh my goodness, where is the bucket? I'm in the room. Oh, there's my bucket. I got my bucket. Hello, Stanley, it's me, your bucket. Press G to take me to work with you. I gotta go to work with my bucket. Where's the bucket? Oh, there's my bucket. I got the bucket. We're not going home with the bucket. Oh, wait. I guess we are gonna have to go back home with the bucket. All right, let's go back home with the bucket.
Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over an inanimate metal object? I want to say something to him, but I don't know how I can convince him. I don't know if he'll listen to me. It's sad.
That's right.
I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket, this cold, empty bucket, this sort of shiny bucket. Well, I'll give it this. The bucket does have a nice shine to it. Oh my God, what am I saying? It's a bucket. It's literally just a bucket. Why do I feel some need to point out the ways in which it's so much more than just a regular bucket?
It's a bucket.
Oh no. I'm having feelings for the bucket. No. What's going on? Why do I want to be with the bucket? Hear what the bucket has to do. Anything it asks. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. Perhaps.
I mean, those candles are dangerously close to that bed. I am concerned that there might be a fire hazard present.
Stanley, give me the bucket. Give it to
No.
me. Give me the bucket, Stanley. I need it. Give it to me now. Give it, or I'll...
Don't take my bucket from me. All right. I'm doing the bucket
Stanley
again.
lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him.
Yep.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top.
But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms.
I couldn't go on without my bucket.
But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him
The
that
bucket
the
is
employee
calling me.
lounge was simply the
Yes.
place.
Something
Now, I
up
can't
there I need
jump.
you to do.
But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced it had spoken to him, and he No, stop! Look there on the wall, you see? There's a sign right there. It says, "No buckets past this point." Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here? Unless, what if the problem is that you actually don't know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket? So much of the impact of the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for a moment. Now then,
Is this a
I'm going
bucket?
to run you through some test scenarios, and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know about what is or is not a bucket. Okay, let's begin. Item 1. Is this a bucket? Correct. It is a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
It's a bucket hologram.
Item 2. Is this a bucket?
Nope.
Correct. It is a 3D printed recreation of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
It's a 3D printed bucket.
Item 4. Is this a bucket?
Yes, that's a bucket.
Are you hallucinating? This is a tractor. It's an enormous machine that tills the earth. I thought this was a gimmick. How on earth did you manage to screw it up? Absolutely incredible. Let's just move on to the next one.
Let's move on to the next one. I'm sure it's not going to be a bucket.
Is this a bucket?
I mean, I really feel like it's a bucket. Yeah.
Correct. This is a bucket.
That's a bucket now?
Is this a bucket?
No, that's not a bucket.
Trick question. Both. Gotcha.
What? Can't both be a bucket and not be a bucket.
Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. Should be around here somewhere. Yes. Thank you. There's nothing here. Of course it isn't a bucket. We both know full well that nothing isn't a bucket. Wait, when I say nothing isn't a bucket, that makes it sound like I'm saying everything is a bucket, which of course is not true. Unless, is that what you think?
Yes. I just broke
I'm
your
too
brain.
confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket? Mere moments ago I could answer these questions with confidence.
Yeah.
And yet now I'm somewhat adrift. Do any of us know what a bucket is? Am I a bucket? I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry. But I'm going to erase all buckets from the game entirely.
No.
Okay.
I don't. No. Don't take my bucket from me. Don't take my bucket from me.
What happened? Is everything gone?
The
Everything
game is
disappeared.
gone.
Wait,
When you deleted the
was
bucket, you deleted
everything a
everything.
bucket?
Yes.
Every single thing in the game was a bucket.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, I had no idea. Except me. I'm not a bucket after all. But it doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a game. So, tell you what. I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the buckets, okay?
Sounds
Know
good.
that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that. Who knows what that information might do to a person?
I don't know. I really like the buckets.
With the bucket in his arms again, he was home.
I feel home now.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life.
I mean, if you were stuck here at work, why not be stuck in this
The
room?
two of Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the PIN number for the keypad was 2845. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death. The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Okay. Man, I don't want to meet a horrible, violent death.
But of course, Stanley and the bucket thought better of it and realized they simply had too much to live for.
Yeah, we've got a lot to live for.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
It's okay, my bucket.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well?
Uh-oh. Starting to doubt the bucket.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life, for he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good.
Yes.
Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world.
Absolutely.
They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system. Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over? Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support, and... Wait, what was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? Until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave.
Oh my
Even
gosh.
the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket.
Oh no, come on.
Stanley can't leave this place. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley, he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket.
They will not let you leave with the bucket. You can't leave anyway, I don't think. It's a new area.
Okay, this is day number 295. Tape number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore. The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down. It doesn't
These people are
make
obsessed with it.
sense. There's no explanation for it. I still haven't figured out why I see the world so differently when this bucket is in my arms. Why everything feels so... What do I do with this treasure? I can
What?
monetize it. Yes.
What?
It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket. This is my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get... What's that? Who's there?
What? Wow.
Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled. He'd
Absolutely.
never be alone again, not truly alone, not with the
No.
bucket around.
Just as long as we have the bucket.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fined for that. All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance.
Oh, we're in a
and wisdom
loop.
for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who
Oh,
knows
wait, where'd
what
my bucket
sorts
go?
of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley!
Come to me, bucket.
Stanley, it's me, the bucket.
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next.
Oh my gosh!
None of them were his special
There's
bucket.
so many
Come
buckets.
to me, Stanley.
There's so
Find
many
me.
buckets.
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along.
There are so many buckets
Incredibly
everywhere.
painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and
Oh.
blacked out.
I blacked out.
This is the story of a woman named Mariela. Mariela woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariela thought. And
Yeah.
She hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
And we're dead on the sidewalk. What an amazingly fitting end. We just died. Straight up. And that was the Stanley Parable Deluxe we played through. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.